Okay, my friends, at the last video, I sort of stopped abruptly just by accident. So we're going to pick up in a minute, but we're going to also go through, this is a paper I just wrote about the process of turning soft-bodied creatures into mud fossils. How did it happen? When did it happen? How was it possible? What's the chemistry that's involved? What's the body tissues that are involved, and what did they convert to, and why did they convert to these things? And I go through the whole thing all down, and a lot of new stuff has just been discovered, these fluid-filled highways that are in the body, and these different layers of tissues that they never saw before. And Yale put out a paper confirming what I had presented them years earlier: exceptional preservation, soft-bodied creatures promoted by silica-rich oceans. And now I understand why the silica was so prevalent, and why they said it was a global, rapid, salty ocean, high silicates in a catastrophic worldwide flood. Basically, that's exactly what they say. Where did all the silicates come from? I explained that. How can we get a worldwide hot water flood? What did Velikovsky say about all this stuff? From all the different diverse populations all around the world, they had the same story. Venus continued past us and hit Mars. We almost got hit by Venus. That's what caused our hot water flood. And then it did hit Mars, Venus. This was all recorded. Every single one had the same story. So what can I show to support my claims? Well, I've shown it, and I'll show you again now. So now you see my claims on the process and so forth. Is there more? Yes, there is a ton more, because it affects all of our ancient past. And if you stay with us at Mudfossil Unity, there's no reason whatsoever we need the ones that failed us, which are the university systems. We're going to make our own way of it, and educated at Mudfossil Unity. You will be sought after for your knowledge. You won't have to go out and beg for your job and say, oh, I paid a ton of money, so I'm smart. No, you didn't have to pay a ton of money. You got smart because you're smart, not because somebody says, oh, give him a piece of paper that says he's smart. I have seen the most incompetent people I've ever seen in my life that are supposed to be the most highly educated, absolutely stunningly incompetent. And so arrogantly incompetent that they couldn't care less about being truthful or not. It really is. It's very, very hard for me to believe. I never, ever, ever would have suspected what I did find. Very, very discouraging, to be honest with you. Okay, mes amis, this is the giant hair follicle, and it appears to have a flat side, and they claim that that's because it was a curly-haired person. Now, let me show you the hair follicle in its entirety. Once again, hold on. Okay, mes amis, that is the hair follicle, and that is, of course, the hair coming straight up. And it has a flat side to it. It appears to me, which people say that is a curly-haired person, so I'll go with that. And this is coming straight up. Now, this is the hair follicle. Now, here it is here. Let me turn on the lights so that we can all see what we see. It's in the microscope, and there it is right there. That's the hair follicle itself. Now, what is this? Well, it's a hair follicle. And what is this? Well, it's a hair follicle. And what is this? Well, it's the anchor for the erector pili muscle. Right there. It locks right on there. Snap. And that lets your hair go up and down like this when you get excited. Now, what is this? What's that little globular looking thing? That's this right here, the sebaceous gland. And this right here is where the hair grows. They grow down and then turn around and come back up. That's why sometimes you get an ingrown hair. They don't turn around. These are the vein and artery at the bottom. You see the two little vein and artery? That's what this is. And now that's a hair follicle. So think of how big that creature was. So don't laugh at me when I talk about gigantic giants. And I have them on my property. Not, well, this came right off my property, so it must have been around here somewhere. All I can tell you is they're everywhere, they're everywhere, they're everywhere. I understand them now. I understand the chemistry. I've had them DNA tested and CAT scanned. And we're ready to roll. We need somebody to stand up and say, let's take a look at this. It's silly to walk around in circles and and not pay attention to our real ancient past. Because this is more than just something spectacular to get excited about. It's something to think about because it might have some impact on it. I don't know. Some people will think it does. I think it does. For me, it's been an extreme impact on my life, I can tell you that, in a number of ways. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that for today. And once again, I love you all. I'd love to get a school started and just get away from mainstream. We just start all over, make our own books, and just start a school. And I know how to do it in a research-oriented way. Now, I don't know how to teach a person how to program and how to do all the kind of stuff they do now with computers. I don't know. I got nothing to do with that. I am a material guy, and this is a material world, and you guys have not been allowed to really examine that world. And, you know, it's fine to do all this other stuff. That's great. I love it. You guys love it. Have a good time. But I want to see what's reality and what may be my eternity. I don't know. At this point, I'm going to tell you right now, there's no question in my mind whatsoever, none, zero, that the ancient texts were just fakes. They were 100% based on at least some type of material evidence. I found material evidence everywhere that supports exactly what was said. I mean literally exactly what was written. So, everybody has their own way of looking at things, but, you know, if you're looking for truth and reality, just stick around. We're going to find it here. If you can handle it, you can handle it. If you can't, well, I'm sure there's a lot of other places you can go. If you have a heart of stone, see that? That's the aorta. That's the other, there's a little red blood coming out of there. This is a heart. Any heart surgeon took a look at that and said, yep, that's a heart, my friend. That is a heart. Here's the ventricle walls. So, what can I say? It's time to do whatever you think is right. I'm not trying to influence anybody in any direction whatsoever. But I can tell you what, it may change a lot of people's deep understanding of religious convictions and so forth. However, I don't think it changes for me anything to do with God. Nobody knows where God came. I don't care who you are. Absolutely nobody. And I don't even think God would know where God came from. How would he even know? So let's just take it from what reality we do know. That's where I start. What do we do know? And I know about the ancient texts. Very clear. They all wrote the same stories. It's in a little bit of different nuances. You know, just a smidge difference. And it might have just been related to cultural changes, or it may even be geographical areas like the Norse. They were cold. They had the frost giants. And other places, I don't know, they had whatever they had there. But I can't account for all that stuff, and I can't account for the sizes of these things. They were just astronomically large, and I mean astronomically large. And I've shown you what's in space, and I've shown you what's here on the earth, and I've shown you what was read in the ancient texts, and what it says here. Jesus said the earth is a gigantic corpse and a body. Now, well, it says if you find... Well, here it is, 80 and 56. These were really a shocker to me, I'm going to tell you that. 56. Here it is. Jesus said. Now, this was written by Doubting Thomas, and he was Jesus' scribe. And these were the sayings of the living Jesus when he was alive. This is the Gnostic text. That means knowing, understanding. And Jesus said, if you discover the interpretation of these sayings, you will not taste death. So you want to try to maybe understand those. He also said, those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. Absolutely. When they are disturbed, they will marvel. And if you haven't marveled by now, you got no marvel in you. And then they will reign over all. All right? And after they have reigned, they will rest, whatever that means. 56, pretty obvious. Whoever has come to know the world has discovered a carcass. I discovered a carcass, I'm going to tell you what. You have too. And whoever has discovered a carcass, of that person the world is not worthy. So now we have a carcass. And then 80, what is this, like a dipoles. For this reason, if one is whole, one will be filled with light, and if one is divided, one will be filled with darkness. I'm going to go back and read that again. Dipoles, look. I disclose my mysteries to those who are worthy of my mysteries. Now this is 80. There we go. Whoever has come to know the world has discovered the body. Because you have to know the body to understand the world. Whoever has discovered the body, of that one the world is not worthy. In other words, it sounds to me like there's so many people who couldn't care less about reality that they're not worthy. They're just not worthy. Now, is that true? I don't know. Will that offend people? I don't know. I know one thing. It's this kind of language and this kind of words and this kind of speech is not tolerated in the halls of academia, because it's so far changes everything they say. Everything they say is based on a certain set of principles that have now shown to be virtually all of them are wrong. Virtually everything. And I will discuss this with anybody in every realm of science, 100%. I will go against anybody at all. And on my own Zoom account, I'll talk to them, we'll discuss it. We'll debate back and forth. You have 5 minutes, I have 5 minutes. 2 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever you want. And I'll show my evidence, you show your evidence. I have shown my evidence for a very long time, and I think it's time that somebody responds to it. I haven't had one question, not even one single question, after reaching out hundreds of times, hundreds, to academia, not even one question to say, oh, well, how did you do this? What happened there? Well, how did that happen? Wow, that's interesting. No, none, zero. So we know that they're really not interested in the reality of the situation if it uproots their status, and it's going to. It's just gotta. It's going to happen. I can't stop that. There's nothing I can do about that. The only way to get ahead of this is to embrace it by academia and say, "Wow, who would have ever considered this?" That's all they have to do is say that, because everybody would say, "Nah, I would have never considered," and nobody would. But to walk away from it and hide from it, that is not the way it should go down. And I know why this situation is happening, is because they're scared to speak up. When they do speak up, they'll be considered an idiot, and the peer review will treat them that way, and it should not be that way. We have to change that. And they're worried about student loans. They should be, in my feeling, at this point, I think that college should give money back to the students, not the taxpayer. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they haven't done their job. They have not done their job. If they're not looking at the stuff that I've been presenting, like Yale University, I presented this stuff 7-8 years ago, and whatever, and I mean, even the physics realm, all of that stuff was not a lot, really not seen at all by academia. You know, I don't know what obligation they have, but when I present DNA and CAT scans and everything, and that's exactly what Yale wanted, and I did it, and they still refused to engage. Then, of course, a year later, they wrote a paper saying that, yes, all that stuff was right, but they have no idea how it happened. And as I showed you, I understand it intimately, and I still am excluded from that realm. So, you know, as people say, oh, you write a peer-reviewed paper. I tried writing papers coming out of my ears. I got papers on academia, dozens of them, I think. I don't know how many I have now. But they're on there. Nobody reads them. Nobody reads any of these academic papers, really. Very, very few. So they never go anywhere unless you can get some science communicator with a basketball or something out there. You say, yeah, I play basketball and I know all these, whatever. But you're not going to get just some average academic. Well, they're not going to listen to anything I have to say anyway, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, my point is, until we get somebody that's willing to stand up and help us, that has a voice, and there are some science celebrities now that could do this job. I haven't found any willing to stand up yet. There's also, like I say, sports celebrities, entertainers. They're the ones that should be stepping up and helping this, because they have the ones that have the voice. I'm not loud. Well, I am loud, but I'm just not heard. And that will never happen. I will never be heard. So until you guys take it to the streets, it's you're going to know and nobody else will know. And the people that want to know these things are deprived of this. And the other ones that are going to learn are being taught things that they know are not true now. Why is that? How does that go down that way? All right, I know I've taken up a lot of your time today, but this is important, that we get past this intransigence, this denial of reality, hiding and actually getting kind of nasty about it. I've had so many very, very contentious, unfortunate encounters with people from every side of my life, because of the fact that it's so hard to believe, and people, for some reason, there's a little reaction that kicks off in them, and you can see them. They just start getting emotional, and it affected me in a very negative way for quite some time. But at this point, like it said here, I reveal my mysteries to those who are worthy. So let's see who's worthy, who isn't. These things are for you to see, and for others as a test. All right, remember those words. Okay, my friends, as you know about the no toes, we have them in several varieties, the spring toes, and the heel is the same, but it has springs instead of bones. Anyway, that's another separate issue. We're going to be getting into those at some point. These are the two fingertips that I showed or will show you. I think I might have showed them the other day, but these are the ones that, this one here came through space. That is a stony meteorite. And you see that little round spot, absolutely flawlessly round. Again, another one. And this one blew right off. These are where your tendons lock in. This is the exact same fingertip as that, only it's a little bit smaller, and it's from Earth. That's why it's not all cooked up like that. But it was in the Great Flood, and it's flat like that, like a pancake. Now I'm going to show you the surfaces. This is exactly the same as all other surfaces of leather. This is where the arteries blew out. Those are where the real red blood just blows right out. And that's where the red blood blows out too. They have 3 on the side and 3 on this side. These ones don't blow out. You see they're capped off? And the same thing down at the end, it's capped off. Because this side here has valves in it, vein valves they call them. So the blood can only go one way, it can't go the other way, and it hardens up. It's a different molecular structure. The red stays red. As I showed you, some of the stuff actually bleeds. Literally blood comes out. Now, is this the same as this? Yes, it is. You see this? Look at how exactly the same. You see that hook? You see that hook? You see the two of them side by side? You see where the blood was here? And the blood was there? This had blood right here. You can't really see it that well, but it's plugged off. And then this was the other one up here. This side, this one here just ran out because it was just squished flat and all the blood was gushed right out of it. And this one exploded, coming through space. It was still wet. and it literally exploded that whole side off of there because it was still wet. Now you see that little divot there? That crunchy little spot? That's the same as this little divot here, that crunchy little spot. It's no difference. No différence. Vive la similarité. All right, now, you see that? Same thing. So one of them is terrestrial, one of them came from outer space. It's just what it is. If that's not a meteorite or a stony meteorite, I'd like to have somebody tell me it isn't, and why. And because I see these things they're showing, and I showed this one here. It's the iron meteorite, came through space. I showed all the fabric looking stuff. I showed you the spur lock on the end that latches it in. All right, now let's take a look at this. Compared to this, we know they're both fingertips. I'd guarantee you, there's no question they're the same. Now, one's a little smaller, and this one, like I say, as far as I'm concerned, came through space. And it cooked off all the stuff except the internal structure. And that's what the internal structure looks like. Isn't that something? That circle. Isn't that fabulous? Another one there, and there would have been another one there. That one's gone. And this ball, you see that ball? This little ball right there? And that stalk coming out? That's what holds these. They're locked into there so that you can move your fingers up and down and do all that stuff with your tendons. And that's the stalk that came out. And then it turns into like a fabricy, like rubbery thing. Well, actually it's not. The tendons are tough. But they are bendable and so forth, and they have little tiny holes in them, and they, when they cook, they turn porous like that. Now, this side again, that right there is a vein. That's a vein, and that was a vein right there. And this one here was where the other part of the vein was. Don't blow out the red. And I mean, they blow right out of there. Well, as you can see here, I'll show you this in a little more detail, as you know, a little closer up, maybe with the microscope. Why not? We got it cooking, so let's do it. Okay, I say that's the fingertip that came through space. That's the one that's all blackened up. Now I can move this around, and you can see the fabric more or less here or there. Now, where it's really cooked up, you can't see much. You know, and it got pretty well burnt up coming through space. That's just what happens. But look at that. Look at this red blood. This is where it blew out. You see that? Look at that. This is from way inside where there was a ton of red blood. It's just actually saturated blood. That's a little blood vessel. That's why it blew right out of there. It was still wet in there. Look way down in there. Hold on. You see that? That's a blood vessel. Fingertips are absolutely saturated with blood, and that's what happened here. It was just exploded right out of this fingertip. Look at that. This is the edge of that tendon ball. These things are anchored like crazy. Look at all that little gnarly stuff, man. That holds in. They don't lock. They don't come out of there. All right. This is just saturated with blood. It's absolutely saturated with blood. There's actually still some spots where there's a little bit of fabric here and there, but most of it burnt off. I mean, obviously it came crashing to earth. That's my take on this. But these are all colors of blood and transition metals and so forth. All right, so that's this fingertip, I say, came through space. Now let's take the one that is the terrestrial one right here. Let me get set up, hold on. All right, it's coated with the same fabric. They're all coated with the lung and everything. There it is right there. Virtually no difference. It's the fabric, but some are more dense than others, and the lungs are, they call it pleura on the lungs instead of fascia, because it's very dense. Now, so what are we looking at here? We're looking at this. That was the top part of the fingertip. Hold on, let me turn the light on. I have to keep it dark so we can see. Now, that was this fingertip is like this. That's the fingertip. Now, the red blood went up this way, blew out. The black blood's supposed to come back. It has caps on it, so it's capped off. Let's see if we can take a look at those. And we're going to look at these red spots. And we're going to look at that gnarly spot. And we're going to look at this gnarly spot right here. Because this is the same as the bottom of each one of these. That's the gnarly spot. That's the gnarly spot. There's the blood blew out. There's the blood leaked out. That's all. All right, let's take a look. All right, remember this. Your blood supply comes down to each one of these fingers. You see how there's two for each finger? One of them brings the red blood down, and at the very end, this is what's called the terminal. It turns around and comes back up through the vein. So one side is clamped off. The veins have one-way valves. The arteries go this way, that way, doesn't matter. And the red blood stays very, very wet, literally almost forever. This is hardened up pretty solid, but I mean it does. You can rehydrate that stuff somewhat. Now, what are we looking at here? There's two, you see there's two on the ends, and there's two on the sides and two on the sides. They all have 2 and 2 and 2. These are the two on this side. These are the two on that side. These are the veins which do not blow out. They don't blow out. But the red side blows right out. So this is the fingertip. This is the artery side. And then the artery runs right down here, all the way back up towards your heart. Well, it runs down from your heart with the red blood. And then this is the vein side, and it goes back, but it can't come back this way. So that's why it clamps off. Plus, it's a different molecular makeup, and it turns very, very hard. It's called magnetite, and that's the black blood. And the red blood is a hematite, and that's what they make iron out of. It's easy to work with the hematite. The magnetite's not so easy to work with. So that is a fingertip. This is the same thing. It's identical, same thing. These are the two spots. There's one there, one there. One there, one there. Plugged right off. These ones exploded right out. Identical, same fingertip. Same little hook. All right, I'm pretty sure I showed you this, but the same hook, same blood supplies, same blood exploded out. Now let's take a look. I showed you this, the red blood inside the meteorite one. Now let's take a look at this one, what we got on this one. Okay, my good friends, you see what you see there. I just put a little moisture on there. It's pretty well dried up down this area. But this is the lung itself. This is what I call the spurlock. It's a little latch that comes down from virtually every organ and every body part that invests into another body part. Lungs have to latch into another body part, just like that piece of meat there. You see that? That's the spurlock on that. That latches in to wherever it hooked to. I don't know what that is. That's a rock. It's the same. That's this rock right here. I got it dark because you can't use the microscope with the light. But right now I'm looking down at that lung, and that's the lung right up there. And that's a meteorite. That's an iron lung. And that is that same latch. And I'll show you some in other ones too. You can't miss it. Let me put a little, well, that's all right. I just put a little more water on there so you can see it maybe a little bit better. You see, I can drill down into there a little bit. You see it? This is some of the fabric that's on that lung. And that is the latch that holds it in. Now let's point right down in it so I can show you exactly where we are so there's no confusion. Right there, there it is. Let me back out so it doesn't get foggy on us. Now I'm going to turn the lights on up above. Don't lose track of it. This is not going to lose track of it. That's the outside of the lung. Watch this. That's the lung. That was in whatever kind of body it was, but that is the latch right there that I showed you. Now, do other lungs have latches on them? Yes, they absolutely do. And is this an iron meteorite? Yes, it absolutely is. Is it magnetic? Yes, it certainly, most certainly is. All right, now, this is an iron meteorite. It's a little one. Came through space, and it burnt off. But I'm going to show you right in there. That's one of the alveoli cavities in there. There's still blood in there. I can almost guarantee you. Let's take a look at that. You come right down on there. I've got to, of course, turn the lights off and focus it and all that business. Give me a minute to set up. Hold on. All right, I showed you the flap on the lung. We're going to look at the fabric on the lung. The exact same fabric is on here, only that one there is roasted up a little bit. It's black. Now, as you can see here, let me get another shot of that. Hold on. All right, before we go up to the scope, don't forget now, can you see that over there? Yes, you can. That little lung has got the same fabric as this. It's got the same latch as this, as that. Now, let's look at it close up here. And there's the one that's even stripped down. You see this one here? It's stripped down. This is a lung. You see these little alveoli? The pleura was completely stripped away. This is the pleura, this rubbery fabric. And it right down here to the blood cells. You see the blood is really leaking out. This is that little flap. It's the same little flap as this, as that, as even this. That little flap right there is that flap. I'm not kidding you. That's where the plumbing went in. This one here, look at this one. This one's the same thing. But this one here, it got devoid and filled in with silicates. This one just got devoid. Now, this one has the same thing. That is that flap. It's all eroded away or, eaten into on this one, some kind of, I don't know what. And this also lost all its pleura. This is right down into this same area here. And that was a lung. Like I say, I don't know what this is. This is a chipmunk or something. I don't have any idea what it is. Some kind of animal. All right, and they all have the same latch on it. And even, wait a minute, I got another one here. Hold on, where do you see this one? Here it is. This one here. This is a lung. There's that flap right there. And it's halfway of the pleura. This fabric here is halfway pushed off. You see it? And now we got the lung itself is sticking out, and the pleura is over. This is a very, very heavy, dense fabric. It's got to do this 24 hours a day, or you expire. You see how flat that is? All of them were in the flood. That's flat. This one is flat as a pancake. You see it? Caesar, same thing. Perfect on one side, flat on the other side. There's just feathers and everything. All right, this is no joke. This is all absolutely factual. And the DNA tests are in, the CAT scans are in, the anatomist. I mean, this is the chemistry. This is a way done deal. This is so done, it's overdone. I can't, how much more doner can it get? So don't forget now, that is the latch on this lung here. And that one bled out. I mean, blood came out of it. I'm telling you, that's just a fact. When they come out of the ground, if they're packed in mud and still really encased in mud, they're literally in flesh. Mud is nothing more than eroded flesh. So if they're still in a wet, muddy condition, the blood stays inside. The red blood stays fluid. If I put a little water on there, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put a little water, scrape it up, and show what it looks like in the microscope. All right, so we got the two lungs. Now this one here, just to show you, I don't have to put it in the microscope really. You see what you got here is fabric? Well, I'm going to show you this same fabric on this one, only is, like I say, it's blackened up. Wherever that stuff was red, it's black now. Some of the white fibers are still nice and white in fibers. Hold on. Okay, so we're looking at it there, and here it is up here in the scope. Now, those cavities there are still filled with blood. That's the fabric. That the collagen part turns black. The fibery stuff, some of it's remained. The cavities are where the blood is. Now I'm going to move it over to a deep cavity here. You see this one? Like I said, I just put some water in here. Now let's see if we can focus in or out of here. You see that? That's literally red blood. You see all those holes and cavities? Hold on, I'm sort of doing this freehand, so. That's where the air ran into whatever kind of creature it was. It's not a big lung, and now it's got a pretty good iron content in it. You see, that's now it's dried out up in this area. When you put water on these things, you can see a lot better. You know, you got to let them dry out to a point where you can, you know, but you can see that as far as I'm concerned, that's about as close to blood as you're going to get. You see that? Now, I bet if I put some hydrogen peroxide on there, I'd get a little catalase. Hold on. Let me give it a shot. All right, let's see what happens. I'm going to put a little catalase on there, and if it starts bubbling up, it'll mean that there's some viable biological stuff in there. Now, is it foaming up? I'm not sure. It takes a minute or two. I absolutely believe it is. Let me come down right on top of it, which is where you're going to be able to see, because these are tiny, tiny little oxygen bubbles. Well, maybe not. You should see it foaming up. Now, there might be a couple little spots up in here bubbling up, but it's basically devoid of anything biological anymore. I would say. That's my opinion at this point. I wouldn't say that there's much biology going on in here anymore, but it was biological at one time. It's quite obvious. All right, this is the big lung. Now, let me get some, hold on. Okay, this is the big lung. This is that real red spot. Now, I'm going to put some catalase just right on the surface. You see it bubbling up? Look at that. This puppy's got a ton of stuff left in it. Look at it bubbling up. It's eating it up so fast, I got to keep putting it on there, or it's going to go away. Watch it bubble. Hold on. See a little bit, tiny little bit coming out in here. See it bubbling up out of there. If you cut into here, you'd get a, I can tell that there's, deep down inside, there's going to be some pretty viable blood in here. Whenever you see them bubbling like that. Okay, you see this? They actually show this flap, but I don't think they understand that it's the latch. I'm not sure of that, but I did contact a very, very good anatomist. He does autopsies, and he said, as far as he was concerned, it was part of the pleura, and that's what the consensus of opinion is, I believe. Now, I could be wrong, but when you see them in this configuration and how they resolve after transitioning, you can see there was a latch, a specific latch, and this one here shows it the best. It's this little triangle right here. And this one here turned into stone. It was a lung, turned into stone, but they all have that little latch on them. Now this one here, you see how it's kind of reddish and so forth. This one here has the same thing, but it's the reddish stuff has eroded out of it. But this is gnarly. That is really gnarly, that spot right there. And see how smooth it is everywhere else? That's where it locked in. This is the latch right here. You see the latch? You can actually see the triangle. Now, this one here, my little iron lung here, same thing. Has that latch right on the bottom here. Got to get it right in the right light. There it is right there. See it laying right over the top of the other thing? I showed this in the microscope. It's a completely different substance, just like this one is. Because I asked my anatomist friend if it was considered a different stuff, and he said, no, it's just considered fascia. And I said, I think it's some kind of a different material. It's not really like fascia. It's much more gnarly. So anyway, and you can see it right here. That's still a little wet. I was just looking at it as it was wet, but it's very tough, gnarly. Well, I don't know how gnarly it is, but well, I guess it is. Wait, I'll show you something. Hold on. It is tough. As I showed you this one here, this is nothing more than another rock, and that's the latch on it. Now let me show you what it looks like according to a normal latch on a human, or I don't know, I think it's a human. You see this? That's this flap. This is, I'm not sure where this is in the body, but they all have this, and I believe that's where the interstitium sends its fluid-filled highway into the next organ, because they all have what they call a fluid-filled highway, surrounds everything, and that's where pretty much I think it's primarily the lymph moves around through all of the membranes to protect all the organs. That's where your enzymes, bacteria, and all that stuff live. Now, they're 100% sure of this now. And this is, since 2018 or so, they really discovered this. And that's this fabric-filled bag that's here. And it moves through this membrane here into this, and then out the other side, up the top here, over to the next thing. And I believe this is probably somewhere that line, or like somewhere like this. I'm not sure. And it could be in a piece of meat. Well, here it's actually exactly like this. Well, it's pretty close. And this is just nothing more than a piece of meat that's turned into stone, and that is a living or a recently deceased similar situation of locked into the body. All your parts of your body have to be attached to the other parts. So these are these little flaps. I call them the spur locks. I figure I get something out of this. All right, there's Caesar, my buddy Caesar here, you know. Now, he's a goose, and these are his feathers. And this is everything that coats or protects is a collagen primarily. And they're all basically the same thing. Now I'm going to try to focus in on this. Hold on. Now I have to turn the lights off. Now, you see, we're looking at Caesar. We're looking at that lung, which is that lung right there. That's the fabric. There's Caesar. Now we're going to come up here, and there's Caesar in the microscope. Now let's turn this off so you can get a better shot at it. You see, it's not much of a difference there. It's let me turn the lights around a little bit here. You see, that's not a whole lot of difference right there, and that's his feathers and collagens, and this is the same thing here, only that's your lung. All right, even my belt is virtually the same as this. It's these rubbery collagens; they're all built the same. Okay, so you saw Caesar in the microscope. You saw the lung in the microscope. This is the notos. We're going to take a look at that. You saw the iron lung and all the little cavities and everything from it in the microscope, and the spurlock. You saw these lungs, this one here, and this one here with the very apparent spurlock latch, which is a completely different substance. It appears to me. I don't think it's the same exactly as the fascia. It doesn't appear to me. And you saw that one, which is the partially degraded one with the spurlock. Caesar, we all know Caesar. Caesar Augustus. Now he's going to have to go back to his perch. Now, let's take a look at the foot, which is one of the no-toes. And it's leather just like our feet. Well, just like a leather shoe, but it's not a shoe, even though it looks like it. It even looks like it has a sole on it. But this is not. This is part of this creature's foot. This is part of the creature's foot. And this one even has a lock on it. You see it? they wrap around. That's how all of these things stick together. They used to call it the tunica. In the ancient texts, they call it tunica. But see that foot? If it didn't have that hanging over the edge, you wouldn't know that from our foot. And you really can't hardly tell much of a difference. That's where the tibia comes down, the big bone. See it right there? See how perfectly round it is? And then the fibula sits on the side. That's the second bone. And it's only held on by, there's 2 ligaments and a little tiny nub in there. And they all fall off. And we have more than one of these. There's not just one. So let's look at this in the microscope. We'll look at the belt again. I think I showed that in the last one. And then we're going to look at these fingertips. And again, this came through space. That's an iron meteorite. And this is a stony meteorite. It's all burnt off and cooked off. And this right here is biological. And that was the other fingertip to it. I think I either showed it to you or I will show it to you. And we're going to look at it in the microscope now. All right, that's the no-toe right there. It's in the microscope. Of course, that's the lung, and that's the no-toe fabric. See, almost no difference at all. And it's a little moist now. I just put a little moisture on there, and that's just what it is. Now, there's other spots that are very, very almost still have the top layer of the leather on it. I'm going to show you my belt, and it's very, very similar. And then there's other areas that the blood has run out of it. You see these white areas here? All that's left in there is the fabrics. And the bloody matrix, which is over here, has been washed out of there for some reason in that spot. But here's where the bloody matrix is, right next to it. See the red and the black? And these little balls are the anchors that held it in, that hold the fascia in. I'll show you in the belt. But you see all these little white fibers. That's why I'm showing you this area. You can see the white fibers. They're all over the place. And that's the same in all collagen fabric. It's these fibers. It's just like in my belt. Watch. All right, this is my belt. That's one of the loops. And this is every one of those balls is an interstitial ball. Now, in leather, they roll it and flatten and roll it and crush all those balls in. They use some chemistry to sort of stabilize everything. So normally, you're going to have this effect over here. You never see this, the little straps. But where they're under stress, they're pulled out, and you can see that every one of them has an attachment of one of these threads. They're almost unseen. You know, in leather, you never really see them until they stretch like this. But they are the same little straps that are in all the interstitiums. And, of course, that's my belt right there. Genuine leather, by the way, so it's real. All right, so now this is the bone that I keep showing all the time. Bones have a little more rubbery sort of texture to it, but it's still basically the same sort of stuff. Let's look at it up in the microscope. Hold on. I might have to focus this in. Give me a second. Turn this light off. Now, this is you see, it's the same fabric. It's basically the same fabric. Now, if I put a little water on there, just like always, it will take on a little bit better look to it. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, you just have to put it on enough to moisturize it and dry it off a little bit. That's all right. And there's what you get. They take on the water almost instantly. I mean, the hydration is incredible. Hydration just means how quick the water gets absorbed. And but you can see it's very, very similar fabric. You see it? But it's in a different area on the body. It's encapsulating bones. So it's a little more gooey. It's almost like a sheet. But it's made of the same stuff. All right, so that's the bone head. Now let me see. I'm going to see if I can show you the bone. It's one little tiny piece of bone. Hold on. You see that? That's the one little tiny bit of bone that's left at the very, very bottom edge of the bone. See, this is the outside edge here. This is the very bottom edge of the bone. Those two little tiny white spots are what's left of the bone. The rest is transitioned into, you know, I don't know what you'd call it, basalt, metamorphic, you know, whatever it is. That's the center of the bone itself. That's the dead center where all the marrow was. And this is the outside of it. You see all the brown, where the brown is on the outside edge. We're going all the way around the outside edge. All right, so that's the only last bit of bone that's in this bone. Two little white spots. All right, this is the back side of that partially degraded lung. I'm going to go to the other side and show you the transition. But this is the back side, flat as a pancake. Now, I'm going to take it out of here, move it over to the other side, and see if I can show you the separation between... Well, it's going to be hard for you to see because it steps down so quick. Hold on. Okay, now keep your eye on this. It dries up quick, so... Down in the lower spot, right down here, is where the actual tissue of the lung is. You see it way down in here? That's actual lung tissue. Up here is where the fabric of the lung was. So if you can see this, remember, that's the step down, that's the step up at the top. And here it is looking at it right there. You see how we got the step up at the top, we got the step down here. That's where the actual lung is right in there. All right, you see it? That's the actual lung part. And that's the fabric that has eroded, sort of pushed away to the side. And this will be very red. You know, it'll absorb up that moisture very quickly. Let's see if we can see it in the microscope. Hold on. Well, here it is up there, but it's, you can see, that's actually the lobes of the lung. Looks similar to the fabric. It might have some fabric pieces attached to it, you know what I mean? I don't know. But the real fabric of the lung is this stuff here. That's what the fabric of the lung coating looks like. Totally different stuff. All right, so that's that. All right, this is the fingertip. And we're looking at one of the blood vessel right at the very tip. They don't get much bloodier than that. That's just solid red blood. All right, this is the very, very tip of the finger right here. So this is the solid red blood side. The other side is where the vein would have come out. Now, that's where the vein side is. You see? It doesn't blow out the way the artery side does. It's black. You see it? Now, if we come down the vein side, there's the other... Oh, whoops, it's too much. It's going to be too hard to see that. Hold on. Well, you can see it pretty good. You see on the side there? That's where the vein would have been on the side. And this is the same kind of fabric. And that's what this is, the terrestrial fingertip. So, but it's flat as a pancake because it was in the flood. I mean, all of this stuff had to happen like almost at this. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say anymore. I don't want to make any claims that I can't substantiate, but I can tell you, well, all the stuff I got, as far as I'm concerned, all came off the surface of the earth almost exclusively. I didn't dig for hardly anything. And it's all flat as a pancake on one side, and I understand the process. And the only way I could think of it could happen is because of a hot water flood. Hot. So global, all over the entire world. And Yale agrees with that. But I don't think they agree with the hot part, but I do. They say they don't have any idea how it happened. Well, I do. Because it was a hot water flood. Velikovsky recorded. He said it was recorded on every culture on the world. And every one of them talks about giants. Not a single one doesn't talk about giants. 100%. 100. They also talk about dragons. 100%. Why would they think that everybody's making this stuff up? They're not making it up, my friends. This is just real stuff. And it's time to sort of think about it in a more realistic way. I mean, if you think it has no meaning to you, well, that's up to you. But some people might see it a different way, and they're entitled to at least look at it. This is evidence. This is not just some nonsense, silly stuff that, somebody's talking about has no evidence for. This is completely evidence-based science. So this is not theoretical science by any stretch of the imagination. It's all based in materials. It's based in chemistry. It's based in physics. It's based in history, and it's based in the ancient texts, which I now give so much credibility to. We were told they're just comic books. They were just writing to scare kids or something. I don't know what they thought they were doing, but they all had the same story. I don't know how that happened. And they all talked about gods. They all talked about dragons. They all talked about giants. And they all talked about bad things. bad things, and some good things. Now, can you find the good things from the bad? That's my mission right now. I'm going to tell you that right now. Now, let me just read to you the chemistry here, and I understand the chemistry extremely well. The spectrum indicates glycine, which is C2H5NO2. That's the chemical composition of glycine. Now, they detected this simple amino acid. Amino acids are what all your DNA and RNA and all that stuff is made of. Proteins, too. These amino acid, glycine, a biologically important organic compound commonly found in proteins. Proteins are what make up your whole body. And when you see what a protein is, it'll blow your mind. They don't just happen by accident. That's very complicated. Now, Phosphorus detection. They found phosphorus. Well, big deal. What's that mean? Well, phosphorus, the spectrum indication phosphorus detection, along with other gases, all kinds of gases, I'm sure. Phosphorus is a key element in all living organisms. All living organisms. It's in the membranes. It is found in DNA, RNA, and in cell membranes. It is used in transporting chemical energy within cells for metabolism. That means phosphorus is used to transport energy through your body. Now, what I'm going to show you, to me, indicates this was a biological thing. Well, you make your determination of what you think it was after I show you what I have to show you. But this is the chemistry that indicates that is completely saturated with the life molecules that you would expect if it is what I'm going to say it is. Okay, this is what they call a spectral analysis that tells you what kind of chemistry is in the gases or in the particles. Phosphorus detection, I can tell you what that is. And all of these other materials, I can tell you what those are too. They're all organic and products of life. Okay, they're just talking about amino acids. These are amino acids. There's 20 of them. And they make what they call polypeptide chains, which go through the ribosome and create all kinds of chemistry for your body. And where do those ribosomes come from? They come from right there, out of bacteria. This is a single-celled organism. There's tens of thousands of different species that create different chemistry. That shoots out balls, literally balls, out of that thing. And where do they go? Here's what happens to them when they pop out. They come out as these balls, and then a sheath comes off them, and then they turn into enzymes and proteins. Well, you want to see what a protein is? You think this is going to happen by accident? It's amazing. They think this can just be self-happening and have tens of thousands of these different proteins and enzymes. This is ridiculous to think that. And if they're any different whatsoever, that's what's called denatured. They don't work. And here's what they look like when they come out of that ribosome I'm talking about. They come out like this, and then they go, and then and then they're locked. That's it. If they move, this guy goes over to here, it's all over. This guy breaks, done. This guy's gone, done. That has got to be exactly that way for it to do its job when it encounters an invader to kill it. It has to have that exact magnetic signature, and it's called click chemistry. It goes click, and they all die. Or if it has to break down food, same thing. It sees the magnetic signature of what that food is and says click, and the food just falls apart. These enzymes are unbelievable, and one enzyme just keeps doing its job and never gets consumed until there's nothing more for it to do. Excuse me. Okay, that wasn't a real emergency. If it's a real emergency, always call 911. No. I'm just kidding around. Okay, almost went down choking there for a minute. Listen, here's the deal. These have to be identical every single time, and you need them or you can't break down your food, you can't kill invaders, you can't create things. And the other thing that bacteria do is they scoop up all the garbage and take it over to the lymph nodes and dump it so that the lymph nodes can take these kind of things and destroy the garbage. They're the garbage collectors, the lymph nodes. All of that stuff has to work. You have to have the bacteria in your body. I know I keep going over this, but I'm telling you right now, it's important. And people don't realize this. That nobody makes a big deal out of bacteria, but I'm going to tell you right, bacteria is the thing that can save your life, literally. Now, I think I've shown you everything here. I didn't show you this. This right here, that's a heart. These are the aorta and so forth. This is all cooked into iron and different metals out there. This is psyche. This is all metals. I showed you what the metals are. There's blood in it. There's blood all over this thing too. And I was going to show you the microscope shots of my bloody little lung. You know what? I'm going to save all that other stuff for another time. I'm getting a little tired. But anyway, we're looking at things that you never ever could have expected like that. They're right there. I'm going to tell you right now, these moons and planets and so forth, they were just as they talked to about. As far as I'm concerned, in the ancient text, they talked about them being either living creatures or parts of living creatures, and I can't see that that's outside the realm of possibilities, my friends. When you see what Jupiter has and what the red spot really is, it really changes your perspective on life, I think. You know, some people just blow it off. Oh, it doesn't mean anything. Well, maybe not to you, but it does to me.